Alrighty, here it is, the Tree Trouncer 10,000, still under construction at a workshop near you. Built onto Mr. Digsby by way of removable clamps and saddles is my latest creation. It raises a chainsaw 27 feet up into a tree. An electric chainsaw, that is. Between those two tusks, the chainsaw blade comes down by way of a mechanism I'm yet to develop. And of course, among the candidates are these electric motors here, that I could arrange in some way to pull the chainsaw down, maybe by way of rope like this, around a pulley like that, or maybe a long Bowden tube like you have for brakes on bikes could be the answer. Haven't figured that out yet, but I want to be able to cause that chainsaw to tilt down between those tusks when it's time to cut the branch. The two tusks you see sticking out are intended to rest on top of the branch once this machine has reached into it, and the tusk that's pointing down is the sort of limiter to stop the chainsaw from being pushed too far past the branch in order to actually allow it to cut the branch. We'll have a closer look when I bring it down. But let's have a look-see at how she's mounted. I've made up a set of little saddles here. Need to finish the welding, but the strength of it is sufficient for the purposes of display and testing. The bottom saddle is attached to a fairly low point on the boom. Saddle here, supports, saddle at the top, and bolts to pull it all together either side of the boom. That makes it removable. Same arrangement up there, a little bit more elaborate because the strain on it is greater. And it works in such a way as not to interfere with the movement of other parts of the machine. That way I can move the stick and the bucket independently of the add-ons. So if I operate this stick here and look straight into the sun, you can see how the frame's been made in such a way as to avoid a collision. Don't really want to pass under there because it might be a little bit on the dangerous side. There's a lot of gravity around today. Not according to flat earthers though, but what would they know? So to some degree I can actually still use the digger with this on there, even though it is going to interfere. Now if I operate the electric winch, which is situated right there, and that's removable too, we can bring the chainsaw down about 5 feet. Now my idea of doing it like that is to allow the chainsaw to be moved up and down without moving the digger itself, in order to give me a greater precision. So here we go. Very high-tech switching system I've got here. El Cheapo winch. Where is it? Yeah, it's a piece of junk, but it works. So if you look really closely, you can see the whole thing slowly receding. The spear receding into the support cylinder. There's a little flag on there that comes into contact to limit the travel. Right, it's all very manual at the moment. I might make it smarter. That's at its lowest level of extension, so it still reaches fairly high into a tree, even at its shortest reach. hopefully that won't be a problem. This high technology here, assuming it doesn't fall off when I start trying to move it, allows me to rotate the chainsaw. So if we watch the chainsaw while I pull on the clamp, see it rotating, and its motion is limited by this little assembly here. So as we have about 45 degrees of rotation either way of the horizontal. Talking of which, let's bring this down, take a closer look. Yeah, the moving parts get pretty close to the operator, so I've got to be careful to avoid any deathing that might happen. Let's bring that down a bit more. But once the sag, the bucket can hit the ground and limit the movement. But in my design here, this cylinder which carries the spear is actually removable. So this G-clamp will ultimately be replaced with a handle sticking up like this that you pull left or right to rotate the saw like you've seen, and the handle will be bolted on in some way so as you can remove it in order to slide all of this out through those saddle sleeves. This bolt gets removed, of course, as it's one of the retainers. It serves a dual purpose. It's a rotation limiter and a retainer for the spear sleeve. I got this idea from looking at rifles, bolt action rifles that is. When the winch activates, it pulls on this, allowing it a travel of 5 feet. I could longanize this and maybe give me another half a foot of movement. This piece here, it's got sharp edges, needs to be trimmed, but its purpose really is to prevent the spear from returning beyond a certain point and perhaps impaling the operator. So at full retraction, the spear starts to appear here and stops. Otherwise, the spear travels 5 foot forward inside this cylinder. To permit rotation, I've got this high-tech arrangement. Basically, it's 3 pieces of metal welded in there in order to lock the spear rotationally with the cylinder that it travels in. What that lets me do is rotate this fork and knife assembly, come to think of it, so it is a knife and fork, isn't it? Rotate it in such a way that it lines up with the branch that I'm working on. So if I encounter a branch way up there that's inclined this way, that's the way I turn it, thereby allowing those 2 tusks to sit on top of the branch so as the saw can work its way through. Ultimately, of course, when the branch snaps, this fork will lose its support because it's not going to be resting on a branch anymore, but this one will, of course, be still supported. And this vertical piece here, as I mentioned before, it's simply a backstop. So as the branch will hit on this and not be able to go beyond the range of the saw, which of course is there when it's at full swing. I'm yet to figure out how to animate the saw. It may be by way of one of those electricity motors I showed you. Could be a window wiper motor that slowly winds up a string or something that slowly pulls this around. I figured I'd have a return spring somewhere on here, going back to somewhere on here, between there and there, in order to actively pull the saw back, thereby saving the motor the duty of doing that. Of course, by the same token, I may have a swing arm that basically copies this motion and couples it to the saw arm by way of a spring, thereby serving as a sort of tactile feedback device for the motor. After all, this thing is, well, call it 30 feet away at full extension from the operator. Now if I can make this thing work in the way that's intended, it will allow me to reach up into trees, basically crawl towards the tree, get close, use the winch to propel the saw the final couple or 3 feet, thereby allowing greater precision, and then with an electric generator sitting there, I would plug in the power to that saw and allow myself some remote control. It sure does beat my idea of getting this here lawnmower and just throwing it at the tree. It didn't work, I tried it, it's useless. So I'm thinking this is the better way to do it. As try as I might, I can't find beavers with wings. So, yep, they're all ground based it turns out. This has been an interesting little project, and it's starting to draw to its final stages now, such that I can take this machine off to the farm where I intend to use it, maybe park it up in the shearing shed, and then finish the work under the cover of a roof. At the moment, I'm kind of, I'm at the mercy of the weather, which has been pretty good, I must say, as after all this metal work, cutting and shaping has been done using solar power. And the only engine power I've been needing really is the welder, and of course the engine in this, which moves things around for me. Let's say we jump on and get a little idea of what it looks like from the operator's point of view. There we go. Up and at 'em. Now the sun is playing havoc with things at the moment. My camels are running away. Probably they think I'm going to test it on them or something. Let's say we raise the boom. And then rotate out of the sun because, well, it's bad etiquette to take video of the sun directly without a filter of some kind. Yep, I'm swinging, man. I have to be a bit gentler with the remote control, with the controls, especially if I've got this extended. Just retract the bucket and the boom, I mean the stick. Strange names, but apparently that short bit's a stick and the big bit's a boom. Alright, just raise the boom. Got to watch out with this bit, it kind of encroaches into the operator area. There we are now, with the chainsaw way up there. I'll try to move it. This clamp might just fall off, there's not much holding it on. Alright, now the chainsaw is pointing a different kind of way. I can move it while pointing the camera at it. I assume that was actually pointing at it, I can't be sure. Now, let's take it one step further. Here's the battery pack. High-tech switching system this is. You know, you can't get better than this in third world countries. Here we go. Just bear with me for a moment while I mess around with this and try not to short it out. Up into the tree we reach. Hopefully it won't need to use that winch very much, because as I reach full extension you can see there's a bit of a sag on the spear, and I may need to engineer a support into that, perhaps where I extend the sleeve a little bit and put some sort of bearing under there, basically to shift the load forward at this point. Anyway, with due care I think I can use this machine without too many problems. I imagine the strain is greater as I swing down like this, so yep, due care is called for. One weakness with this is that I can't actually retract the spear while I'm at a low angle like this, because there's nothing to pull it back. I'm relying on gravitology, which there is none down here, got to go up to get it. But in time I'll have me a control system on that tube section there. They'll give me the ability to retract and extend the spear, maybe some push buttons of some kind that will let me do that. Some kind of control for a generator sitting right there. It's going to be very noisy with it right there, but oh well, could be worse. The generator will provide the electricity through a power cord that will run along, maybe inside or beside this, to that electricity saw over there, and then one more button or a lever or something that will allow me to tilt the saw through the tree. Going up. Yep, I know saws in high places. I'll step off again and have a little walk around, Gotta be careful what I stand on around here. Yeah, the sunshine's making it difficult to capture on my video cassette, my VHS powered P900 camera. Yep, this whole thing was inspired by a pole saw I bought recently. It lets me reach about 10, 11 feet into a tree. And unfortunately it's just nigh enough for some of the trees I need to work on. Got some absolute giants that I have to trim as they're threatening the house. Not this place, but the new place I bought. So I figure I'll be proactive and give the trees a bit of a haircut before they give my house a roof cut. Amazing how things look so small when they're that far away. As you can tell, this video was wonderfully well scripted and planned, and I probably mentioned the same item more than once, but you know, something as unusual as this project probably deserves a bit of a rant and a rave. So definitely looking forward to trying this out on any trees that don't get the memo and make a run for it while they can. Yep, tomorrow's little job will be motorising, or in some other way mobilising that saw. Talking of which, let's say we bring that down to show you what I did with that. There's even the saw I've had to modify in order to facilitate this project. So here we go. Just bear with me. Probably end up trimming some bits of video out. Coming down in the world. There's some high quality switching equipment right there. You pay big money for that. Right, let's bring the saw down. We can have a closer look at that. Well, it's about to crash on top of one of my scrap piles here. We'll swing it on round and move it to a place where you can actually see it without too much in the way of obstruction. Right, just extend the stick a little bit. Support the boom so it doesn't move unexpectedly. Okay. Oh yeah, well I'm at it. This and two others just like it. They're where I put legs. So when this is actually detached by way of the lynch pins, slide it off like so, it can stand on three legs as a separate entity. The idea really being to allow me to work on it because it's kind of heavy and awkward to work on. But going to the saw itself, I've got an electric saw here, real cheap, 18-inch one. What I've done is I've modified the bar slightly so as it can be bolted directly to the frame that carries the saw. And I've modified the saw so it will accept a tensioning mechanism situated beside it. It also partially covers the sprocket that drives the blade, which I've removed for the time being to keep it clean and in good condition. Over here is a saddle, well, a saddle will be placed, simply removed for the sake of showing what's under it, but the saddle holds the back of the saw down to stop it from rattling around on the frame. Serves as your hand basically, your back hand holding the saw, and this part serves as your front hand holding the saw. So anyway, once the blade's in place, you tighten this. Maybe put a lock nut on it to stop it from shaking loose, and then when you're happy you tighten that, because that's a sliding coupling right there. Put your wheel in here for your chain bar, as that part still works. So essentially the only mod to the chainsaw really has been to remove the sprocket cover and modify the bar in order to allow it to be bolted directly. So I've been trying to think and nothing happened unfortunately, but the kind of thing I got in mind is to attach something here, maybe a little bit of chain or something to allow it to flex, and then couple that to the Bowden tube or whatever, and yeah, as you can see I run out of thoughts. Coffee's worn off, but if I can figure out a simple way to animate this and allow it to do this, I'll be mighty happy. Maybe I could extend this axle here or something, or put something here to give me a lever which I rotate or turn or move, or I don't know. I'm trying to think, but it's hurting too much, so I'm going to give it up and perhaps partake in more coffee. Maybe I could ask my little camels what they think about it. Yeah, they've already had dinner, so they don't care anymore. So my fellow wooden watters and makers of things and other things, this little thing I've been working on. Wood gas has had to take a back seat for a little while, as a very sudden change in priorities has taken place, necessitating the creation of the Tree Trouncer 9000, or the Putin Pounder 9000, because it looks sort of like an anti-aircraft gun when raised, when the boom plays, that is. Okie dokie. I think that's perhaps enough of my excellent videological skills. Ciao for now.